So, hi everyone, I'm Siris Rivas-Verdejo, and you're here for Choosing a Different Future show. And I have a lovely guest, a new friend, Adam Messer here. And Adam is an author, a journalist, a radio host, and so much more. I have gotten to meet his kids. I'm looking forward to meeting his wife one of these days. And he really enjoys connecting people with other people. Talking with creative folk from all over. He is based here in Savannah, Georgia, where I live. I got to have the honor to be on his show, Muses Memoirs and More, which is live on WRUU 107.5 FM Savannah. But he does so many different things. Like he's a writer and a columnist for Savannah Morning News, Do Savannah. And he just enjoys so many different aspects of his life. I really enjoy just the space that he is of like, yes, positivity and connection, rapport. And so, Adam, thanks so much for being on our show.
I appreciate you having me on, Siris. Thank you for having me.
And I love that how we met. This is also the connector in both of us, that it was super nonlinear, just really like, how did this even happen? It was so cool. Do you want to tell people how we found each other?
It's so crazy. So Matt,
one of our previous guests, Matt LaSalle.
Yeah, Matt. I'm trying to think of how the best way to say it. Okay, so a friend of mine, Corey Brooks, introduced me to Matt, and Matt started up his show, his podcast, Burn Your Boats or whatever, and he talks to different people that have an entrepreneurial mindset, overcome obstacles and things like that. And my friend Corey was like, you need to talk to Adam. And so I talked with Matt, and then we became friends on Facebook, connected with him, because I like to use Facebook kind of like a social version of LinkedIn. Like when people, like I know them in like maybe a little bit more capacity than just a business connection.
Right.
You tagged him in a video, and with a bunch of other people, and I think it was this show actually. And I was watching the video, and I thought, wow, it's such a deep philosophical level. It's rare that I get a chance to talk to other people on that same level. And I sent you a message saying, hey, I have this radio show, and I would love to talk with you. And you were like, yeah, let's do that. I had no clue that you knew Matt, like you were so close with Matt.
Yeah.
And I think that's just how God and how the universe works, that connecting people, I think we're already all connected anyway.
Oh, yeah, we absolutely
are. That we cross. So
like, I was connected with you before meeting you.
Yeah, I know. And then this is so random part of it. I only met with you online. I never met you in person. And then I was at the grocery store randomly one day. I was walking, and I saw you. I said, Siris. And you looked at me like, I was like, yeah, it's me, Adam. And I said, I look different because I've got my work clothes on and all. And then we ended up talking like
wait, what? Wait, it just took me like a couple seconds to put it all together, because
I know.
I'm seeing you in the real world.
Yeah, I know. It was funny. And then we ended up talking like in the parking lot for a good little bit. And so long, it was like, hey, can we move inside? My little grandmother is sitting in the car, and I don't want to leave her too long.
Yeah, my grandmother's waiting for me. I got to finish these groceries, but let's keep talking. Let's just talk and walk. And so we were talking and walking.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, And then it's neat because I think sometimes when you I don't know, like they say some people have like an old soul. When you connect with someone that you never met them before, but you know them.
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I met you. Like I'd never met you before, but I felt like I knew you. And I even asked you, I was like, can I have a hug? And you're like, yeah. And then it was
I didn't know. Wait. I wasn't like, yeah, begrudgingly.
No. I wasn't saying it like that. You're like, yeah. I was trying to jump into the thing at the radio show where I was awkward, and I was like, you're like, no, you're gonna give me a hug, and I was like, yeah.
And that plays listen later. So I'm on Adam's show, which is a phenomenal show. Y'all should check it out. Muses, Memoirs, and More. Like I said,
The Adam Messer Show.
Yeah, the Adam Messer Show. Just look up Adam Messer and Muses. And one of the things
I laugh because I'm like it's so simple, right?
It's like I walk in, we haven't even started recording or anything. We're getting to the studio, and Adam is interviewing me and Matt LaSalle at the same time, which is super fun. We'll definitely pop in that link for that discussion below and with the description and everything for you guys. But like before I walk in, and he's trying to like give me a hand, like he like puts his hand out, and I'm like, what is this? Like I'm like,
you're like, no.
What is here? Give me a hug. And he's like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot who I was dealing with. It's like,
oh man, no, I was just having an awkward moment because like I don't know. Sometimes when you're off in a different thought process or whatever, and I don't know, but I'm definitely I'm a hugger. I like to give people hugs, so
they're really powerful.
They are. The human touch is such a binder.
Yeah, and bodies are asking to be touched more. So when I find people that are quote unquote huggers and are also really good huggers like you, I'm like, more of that, please. So there's no handshakes from this point on.
I know, right?
All right, bud.
Yeah. It's funny too because in today's world, you have to be so careful, that you don't want to. I mean, a hug does not have to necessarily be a sexual energy with people. It can be, just an exchange of an emotional bond or, just a familial love.
Of gratitude.
Yeah. Thankfulness, it could be a lot of things, but, I enjoy a good hug too. So thank you.
Now with your show, so how did it come about? Like, how did the idea for it come about? And did someone ask you to do it? Like, what? I don't actually know the genesis of it.
Okay, so I'll give you the long, skinny short. Okay. I started writing the newspaper, and I would cover these events, and I just talk to different creative people and interview them. So I've been doing the format for the last 5 or 6 years or whatever. And I interviewed Dr. Dave Lake from WRUU last year for their fundraiser. It was called Tunes and Brews, and it was last April, a year ago April. And one of the last things that he put in the responses was that they were looking for new show ideas and new radio hosts.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I pitched the idea of what I've already been doing, where I was interviewing creative people. And they loved the idea, and I originally was going to call it like creative something or another, but they came back and said, oh, there's already the creative approach here in Savannah, and so I came up with a couple of different other show idea names, and the Muses Memoirs and More just really stuck out. I came up with the Muses and Memoirs. And then Dr. Dave added like the and more part, and he thought, it'd be kind of cool because to me, creative people, it doesn't matter what your medium is. Being a creative person means that you share those ideas in one form or another. And that could be music, it could be writing, it could be this, like this show, where you talk to other people. And that's what the whole genesis of the radio show was, because I wanted to be able to share not only the creative end product of what someone sees, but also that process, overcoming those obstacles, just picking their brain for like, hey, what works? Like, for example, I use Anchor FM for my podcast. And Matt, when I met Matt, he was first kind of getting into doing his podcast. He was just starting to do his interviews, and he actually interviewed me. We're gonna have to re-interview because the sound quality was like just kind of bad. But I told him, I said, hey,
Oh,
you know,
and I
you
know
should
he's gonna hate that. He just hates talking to you, right? Like
I know, right?
you
It's
guys
so
don't have a
boring.
blast together or anything.
I know.
Sacrifice. Oh,
But I was like, you know, hey, you should check out Anchor FM. And, you know, so like I learned something that I was able to share with him, and now
yeah.
he used it. And then I have a couple other friends that they use it. So that's what the whole show is about, is like being able to share that process, being able to share, you know, like that story, you know, the person's story.
And the
And
resources and ideas and spaces, like that's what I love too, is like I learned so much in our conversation. It flew by. I was like, wait, we're done? Wait a minute.
yeah, yeah.
I'm like,
That's one of the things I love when you really are connecting with people. There's no time. It's
it's
just
true.
existence. You know,
Yeah, you're
you're
just
there
present
in the
with them.
moment. Right.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. How
So
does it get any
that's the
better?
yeah, that's the skinny of it. So
That's
I
so
could tell you
cool.
the long version, but we only have, you know, so much time, right?
Well, maybe when the next time you're on, we can talk about it more. But I definitely want to talk as well about your other creative pursuits. So the writing and things like that. How did that start for you? Because you said you've been a columnist before you were a radio show host.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I was born, and then I grew up, and and then it happened, right? No, it's one of those things where um, and you have to forgive me for a second. I have to unplug my charger. It's saying it's too hot. Um,
Okay.
as a kid, you know, I was always, I guess, joking around and, you know, laughing and trying to entertain people. And I remember being like in a play when I was in first grade and starting to, you know, draw and write and stuff like that in elementary school. And I don't know, I always had a love for writing. I remember in high school taking AP English, and you know, we studied Shakespeare and just reading in general. I was always a reader. And fast forward to adulthood, I used to blog and write a lot. I don't have any of those blogs up anymore. You know, I've changed over, you know, to a new website, and I didn't really keep any of the old stuff. But I started writing with the Savannah Morning News, do Savannah, because I started doing photography for them. So the same guy I was talking about earlier, Corey Brooks, I met him. And it's so crazy that we're talking about this right now, because I've actually been working on a podcast for the last couple of weeks about this subject.
Oh, that's so
But
good.
yeah, so you get to hear it first. Nobody else has heard this yet.
Yeah. We won't tell
So
anyone else. Just
yeah,
kidding. Tell everyone.
I know, right? It's all there in the world, right? Um, but I have a friend named Camilla Flynn, and in November of 2013, she hosted a spoken word performance, I guess it was. It was called
Mm.
Explicit Lips, and it was so awesome.
Mm.
She rented out Muse Warehouse, which they're not open anymore, but she had a live jazz band on the stage, and in the center there were the poet and the performers. And then she asked me if I would create art while they were performing,
Oh,
and I'd never done anything like that. I never put anything out there in the world like that. So I did. I created these little Conte crayon paintings, and then I actually sold my first piece that I'd ever sold of art at her show, and then I donated the rest of them. And she was doing like a fundraiser for the Rape Crisis Center in Savannah or whatever. And
wonderful
so
agency. I've worked with them. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I met Corey at the show, and he asked me if he could take a picture of me. And actually, I have it on my Facebook. I have to send it to you. But it was the first time I'd ever done a performance as an adult. And so I kept in touch with Corey, and the next, I guess, February or whatever, I was talking to him about, you know, I like doing photography, I like doing art and stuff like that. How could I get involved with doing the Savannah Morning News spot? He gave me the information. I signed up and joined and did that. Well, we had our first little mixer with Spotted, and I met Heather Henley, who was the editor of Savannah Morning News Do Savannah. And I think it was like April or something like that. And I was like, you know, hey, I'm interested in writing. And she's like, yeah, just send me a sample of, you know, your writing or whatever. And I never sent her a sample, but I just wanted to write. So
Well, Well, one of the
there
things
was
I'm
a
noticing, if you wouldn't mind me, I mind my interruption for a
yeah,
second, is as you're talking about your story and it's like one person's leading to the other person leading to the other person, it's like epitomizing exactly how you be with people. It's like, here, this person and this person, like meet this person here, and it just keeps flowing. And
yeah.
that also that flow is what led you to have to start writing there and to have the radio show, and this is flowing into this thing, and it just all there's all these choices and all these steps beforehand that fed
Mhm.
into that. That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a firm believer that one event can change your life. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a decision. You know, I used to say, oh gosh, it's. I don't want to sound funny here, but um, it's like you can make a decision, and your day can change from day to day. You can change your day by making a decision to change it,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like transactional interactions so much as a relationship exchange. You know, like you're building a relationship with a person. I never talk to someone with the intent of what can I give them or get from them. You know, I always look at like, okay, well, how can I serve this person, or what can I do um, that would be mutually beneficial for both of us. And sometimes that mutual beneficial transaction from the relationship means that you give more than you get, or sometimes it means that you get more than you give.
Yeah, and
So
it's not necessarily about calculating all of that because most of that is beyond calculation. Like you can't really do the the
yeah,
numbers
it's your gut
and
feeling, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
flow with it. So
So
please, yeah, I interrupted you though. So then please
oh
continue.
no. Totally. I mean we're talking here, so um so with the Spotted, I was doing like a bunch of events and things like that, and there was a store called Savannah Lion Games here in Poole that was opening up, and I met another person named Jeremy Causeway, and I said, hey, you know, I know that I can promise that I can do a photo gallery for you because I can do that, but I would like to write an article and I want to pitch it to my editor. So what I did was I wrote this article about the store. I just kind of mimicked the format that Do Savannah was doing, their style, and I sent it into the editor, and she said, "Oh, this is great," you know. And then that was that. And then what was really crazy was I had a couple of different story ideas that I pitched about different events, and I actually had an article printed in the main paper before the Do Savannah article came out, even though I sent the Do Savannah article in before the one for the main paper for the Savannah More News. So, and I've worked with them. They've got a couple different publications. I work with the Sun Times up in Jasper County, and
I was gonna be like, you mean
they
Chicago? Because I'm from Chicago, and so we have a Sun Times in Chicago. So I was like, wait, what?
oh yeah, that'd be cool. Uh, but
What
yeah,
would it
they
take? Let's see.
I know, right? And yeah, so I've had photos used by a lot of people. I've met a lot of celebrities and stuff like that, which is cool. But you know, I don't know. I have just as much fun talking with anybody as a celebrity. I mean, like I like it's kind of weird, but like I like to share, you know, like my work. But I'm just as proud of working with, you know, a local person that you know might have an art gallery or something like that that nobody else has heard of,
Yeah.
as to talking with you know, a big celebrity coming into town. You know, so
Yeah.
to me, it's a lot of fun just connecting with that person, especially when you enjoy it and you're having a good time talking with them.
Well, okay. So spinning off of that, so who are like three celebrities that were like really super fun for you to talk with and interview, and who are three of like one of your top like people that you've, and not to say that the other ones weren't great, just that they're super memorable for you that you've gotten an interview with that maybe no one would have heard of.
You know, nobody's ever asked me that question before, so
Every
um,
once in a while, I have some good questions, Adam.
you
Every once
do, you
in a
do.
while.
No, you do. You're making me think right now. Uh, well, I I talked to this country music artist one time named Jared Neiman, and it was supposed to just be for like 5 or 10 minutes, and we ended up talking for like a couple of hours.
Awesome.
And he's got this song called "You Got This" or "I Got This." I can't remember exactly, but it was really cool. He was coming into town for a concert, and I'm not really a big country music fan. I don't listen to a lot of country music, so I wasn't really sure who the guy was. And of course, you kind of Google somebody and check them out and try to be a little aware of what's going on before you interview the person.
Yeah, yeah.
But we ended up talking for a long time. I talked to him about how my son is a musician, and it was just a really cool connection with him. One of the ones that I wanted to talk with, but I only ended up getting like an email interview, was with Dave Ramsey.
Mm.
Um, I wanted to talk to him on the phone, but it just didn't work out because of the timing. He was out of town, but he answered the questions through email through his assistant or whatever, and that was pretty cool because I've always liked Dave Ramsey. I think his financial literacy is really cool, and so I enjoyed talking with him. Another celebrity. I mean, I've talked to a bunch of different ones that have come into Savannah, but recently I talked to a lady named Jessica Brody, and I have been following her writing steps for writing fiction. She wrote a book called "Save the Cat Writes a Novel," and so I started reading it, and it changed. It literally changed the formatting and the structure of the way that I write fiction. So I had to go back and retool that. And her book is Save the Cat Writes a Novel. There was a guy named Blake Snyder that wrote the book called Save the Cat. It was a screenwriting book.
Okay.
And so a friend of hers, gave her the book and said, I think this will help you. And she said, oh, I'm a novelist, not a screenwriter. And the guy was like, well, or the friend or whatever was like, well, how's that working out for you?
Mm.
And she read it and she was like, oh, wow. So she actually, the Save the Cat, Blake Snyder passed away, and the Save the Cat folks, excuse me, they, I guess they contacted her, and she's been teaching this course for a while. So I interviewed her on the radio, and it was a lot of fun talking with her because, sometimes you pick up a skill set, and you're like, you might not know the person. Like, I'd never read any of her work. This is the
Right.
first book that I read, and she writes a lot of fiction. But I admired the format that she had done so much that I reached out to her, and I sent a message to her website and said, hey, I'd like to interview you. And we didn't end up talking about like picking her brain or anything like that. But I wanted to talk about like her work and, her projects and stuff like that. And it's been phenomenal. And I think that's one of the things, people, I guess, maybe think differently. Celebrities are just people again as well. I mean, they're human beings, and they have their quirks. And but I can tell you this much: different folks that I've met that they're in the business or whatever. Um, Sometimes they'll be very guarded because they're so used to someone always wanting something from them.
Yeah.
So that can be true in regular life too.
I've known
And
some principals that are like that are people in like administration in schools, that they're like, everyone always approaches me when they want something for their school or for their students, and I just like, can't we just say hi first? Can we say good
yeah,
morning?
like there's no exchange.
Those basic, like, can we like have a bit of a rapport, or like maybe I just actually get to be talked to when there's like an acknowledgement of something that's been going well and not like a complaint, or a variety of things. But it's usually like, I need this, I want this, can we get this, da 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 da, do we have funding for this? And so I can see how that would play out in both like
It's
folks that aren't
draining.
considered several celebrities and those that are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's draining. And then, the other thing too is like having a public persona in life. Um, you have to have a certain rapport with your audience or your fans or whatever.
Mm.
But there also has to be that definitive line saying, okay, this is my public life and this is my personal life. So like even with me, I have a public uh, personality. I don't act differently in public than I do at home or at work or whatever. But there are certain things that I don't share with the public because it's not their business. It's my family's life, and
Mhm.
things that I just feel like they're not privy to that.
Mhm.
So and I'm not really a celebrity or anything like that. I just write for the paper, and I do the little radio show. But this is all homegrown, local, hometown stuff. It's kind of fun. So, but even with me at my level, I have a line where I say, hey, this is whatever. Um, so, and I get invited to like a ton of events, and there's just so much time in the day, and so many days in the week, and so many weeks in the month that you can do things. And when it comes to it, it's like if I'm off on the weekend and I'm spending time with my family, I would rather do that. Now, there's some times where I'll go do an event, not to make an appearance, but it's usually like a charitable event or something like that I want to be part of.
Mm.
Um, I'll go do that, but I guess with talking with different folks, you just have to learn how to approach them from some kind of common ground, and then
Mm.
also to be able to respect where they're coming from, and then I saw this really cool thing today. It said, talking about networking, which I think networking is kind of a generic term that people talk about, but it said, be interested, be interesting, never try to connect with someone looking for something in return.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was so cool because, I went to a bunch of different networking events over the years, and some folks, just like you said about the principal, some folks, as soon as they walk up to you, what do you do? How are you doing? And can I sell you this?
Yeah.
I'm a consultant for this business, and are you in the need of that? I'm like, I don't even know you. I don't
Yeah.
even know you.
Well,
So
and the other part too, so, it's similar to the interesting, and not looking for the transactions part is, Gary M. Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, was talking about, he's like, you actually, for period, most people aren't really listening. So if you're and they really want to talk about themselves, and so be interested and don't try to pretend or prove how interesting you are.
mhm,
um, and just listen to people, because they'll tell you exactly what they require. They'll tell exactly what's going on within their lives, like,
mhm,
and 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 don't have any of those projections and expectations about what you can get from them or not. It's just like, let's
right,
see, because if you listen, if you be interested in their world and in their life, you're going to see what's actually possible to create with that person or not, what's possible to receive from them or not, what they can receive from you or not, all of those different things. You just listen. Because that's what's, for most people, they're not willing to listen. They're trying
mhm.
to be listened to.
Yeah, active listening with intention.
Mm.
So a lot of people don't do that. I mean, I'm guilty of it from time to time, especially, like just now, I've been talking a lot about myself for the last, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or whatever. But the setting is so that I am talking about myself in this
Yeah,
interview.
I was like, I've asked you to be on the show so you can talk about you, and we can talk
Yeah,
together. So
yeah. So it's just weird because sometimes people, they like being on that pedestal, and then other times they don't.
yeah.
Sometimes they're antisocial, not because of anything that you did, but just because they just don't feel like sharing, or they might. There's a lot of things that go on. You have to think about like what's going on in somebody's background, and where they're coming from, their environment, what happened during the day. I mean, there's a million different things that lead up to that moment, right?
Yeah, so
So
speaking of background and things too, so you're talking about these different pursuits you're doing and all these different things that are pulling you in one direction or not. Your writing, your show. I know that your kids, I got to meet them, and like, are those all of your kids, or did you have more?
I have we have an older daughter. She's uh, about 4 years older than Sebastian, so she's
Okay.
20. Yeah, Sasha. But she wasn't there with us that day, so
Right. Okay, so you have three total. So I got to meet
yeah,
two. Okay.
yeah, yeah. You
That's
have to meet the two youngest ones. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Sebastian is super, super talented. Wow, his music is just phenomenal. And he's just such a sweet energy as well. One of the things I was going to ask you about with the background in your family, though, is how do they, what's their response to all of your projects and all of the different things that are pulling you in different directions, and how do you
Well,
guys create that and
it's
manage that as a family?
it's funny that you say it like that because the different things that I'm working on, they're all on the same road.
Mm,
Like the writing, doing the interviews, um, my self-publishing, those are all on the same road. I consider that all to be in the same category. It's like having a big industry and then those different things that feed into that industry.
Like the different
So,
departments.
right. Um, and they do take time, but I always prioritize my family first. So, I have a 9 to 5 gig that I have to do. I go to school once a week at for the electrical training program, and so I have 3 years left of that. It's you have to prioritize what you're doing, and I always make my family a priority. That doesn't mean that I can always do everything with them first, but
Right.
they're always my priority. And
And sometimes by you doing all those other things, you're actually creating greater possibilities for them now and in the future. Like you're looking at the long view of it from what you've been telling me about how you interact with your family. I got to see that firsthand, but it's even like your thinking process of what you decide is going to take like priority in each day. It's not like you're only talking about you and you're not including them in like how you're planning out your day, or what you're gonna choose to have is like the main thing that's dominating your time in that day. So, and it kind of rotates around.
yeah, and it's interesting that you say it like that because my son is working right now. So where I'm doing the interview, I'm in my car, but I'm right down the street from where he works, and
Yeah.
he gets off at 5.
Mm.
So I try to do things where it's either going to be I'm going to schedule them around what I've got going on with my family, so that it's available to where I'm available to do the things I want to do without
Mm.
interfering with their stuff. And then of course, as the kids are growing up, I mean, as a parent, I think it's your job to do what you can for them. They only have so much time to be children. So I, I'm just gonna say this is a sore subject for me about bad parenting. I see parents that are selfish and that they think it should they should be allowed to do this and they should be allowed to do that. And I'm like, well, you had kids, whether you actively decided to have children or not, you have children, and those formative years that they have, they should be able to play and develop interests and things like that. And sometimes I see parents that they act like the kids are an inconvenience to them. To
Mm.
me and my wife, our kids are a blessing. So we invest in them. We try to do things like Sebastian does music. My girls did ballet. They do dance and things like that. From that to schooling to just different things. I can't say yes to everything, but we
Mm.
try to say yes to things that they're interested in, that are good for them, and that especially like people, because the biggest investment I think in time is who do you spend your time with,
Mm.
and having my children, like for example, I don't bring my children around everybody that I know because I don't want that energy exchange with that person with my children. They're
Are there
people that
certain
I will.
people that you're interacting with that you'd be concerned about how they would interact with your kids?
No, it's just that there's certain times and places and people that it's just not appropriate to have my children with me. And there are
Okay.
certain people that that they're fine and well and they're good, but I just I don't want them around my family.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just to me it's one of those things where you have to decide how you're going to spend your time and who you're going to spend your time with. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing with your family. It's like, okay, well, who do I want my kids to be around and be influenced by? Who do I want them, and it's kind of crazy, but the older I get, the fewer people that I actually want to spend time talking with, on more than a surface level.
Mm-hmm.
So, where I can actually, like right now, we're talking, this is something that I thought was interesting and that, I enjoyed your company and I thought it'd be neat to be on your show, but there are other times where I turn stuff down because I just don't, not that I don't like the person, it's just that I don't have the time to give them.
Yeah.
It might not be wrong, it's not just not the right time. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Well, there's the choice part, and it's also like, is now the time? Yeah, like maybe it actually would be easier and more expansive and and create more if we just waited a little bit. And so those timings, it seems like when it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen when it flows. You don't have to force it. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
totally works. And I also get the prioritizing them and also their sanity and what's they're being influenced by, what they're exposed to. There's so many kids that they're exposed to so much more, so much earlier with the internet and with all the things that their friends are saying, even earlier as well. So like, and me working with kids, I get that. I hear all kinds of stories and I'm like, wait, you watched what movie yesterday? Wait, how old are you?
Right.
Like, okay, you're reading this. All right. So what's your take on it? And sometimes they blow me away and they have a very nuanced, mature perspective on what the things that they're exposed to. And other times I'm like, they're just taking it in and you see them, they're almost bordering on being traumatized by it. And so, I think it's case by case with each person you're interacting with, and also case by case with each kid. I mean, I'm the oldest of 3, and who my mom would probably choose for me to be around and the activities I would do would be different for me given who I was than my sister or than my brother. And that's the other thing I noticed. I can't turn off my parenting analysis, like taking it in, because I work with families and kids so much. And I saw you interacting with your kids, and I saw how you really engaged with them as individuals. And then also you were obviously a family together. So it's such a beautiful honoring of them. And it wasn't like, okay, we're in this family and it's like this one size fits all. That wasn't at all how you were interacting with them. That was really cool to see. Because
I
gotta tell you,
that.
I don't see that all the time.
Yeah. I don't know. That's just how we always are. When the kids were little, when they were babies, my wife and I, we just always would talk to them normally. We didn't do the goo goo gaga, baby voice talk. We would just talk to them normally. And I remember you can tell when you have a child, you can tell the day that they look at you like they know exactly what you're saying. They can't speak yet, but they understand exactly what you're saying. And then they start talking little words and little sentences and things like that. And I think it's for us. I mean, for my wife and I, it was just natural. I mean, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with baby talk. I'm not saying that. It's just that was not our thing.
Yeah.
And so with the kids, we talk about reality. We talk about like, hey, we talk about the good and the bad, and we talk about the difficult. And because I feel as if those are things, like if we can demonstrate to them, not talk about it, but if we can actually show them, hey, okay, well, you're going to have obstacles in life. This is what we're doing to work through those obstacles. It doesn't always mean that we're right, because we make mistakes, but it shows them that process of, hey, okay, well, we had this difficulty. This is how we dealt with it. And it gives them a level of maturity that their coping skills are a lot better. Their conflict resolution skills are a lot better. Their problem solving skills are a lot better. And then it's going to be a while for their brains to fully develop. I mean, but for them to have those skill sets, it gives them a better foundation that they can build on,
Well, the other thing too with that is I'm wondering if, like, by you influencing them and modeling those behaviors and strategies for them, like, have you noticed, or have your kids told you of any of their friends that have like been influenced by how you've raised them? Do you know what I mean? Like, if they come back and their friends or something have said, oh, your dad saying this or something like that. Like, because that's what has happened with my family a lot. Like, I've been talking with friends of mine that I hadn't spoken to in an in-depth way since like middle school or high school. And I had no idea until now we're adults, in our 30s, that how much of an impact the way my mom interacted with us was on them. And and it was just like, oh wow, like yeah. So I'm just curious, given how you interact with your kids, if any of their friends have mentioned that, or if you've noticed it.
Do you know how you can tell if you're influencing someone?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just asking you. Do you know?
For me, it varies. Now as an adult, I see it from a very different place. For me, they actually start choosing something different. is they actually start.
Oh, I like how you worked that in there with the title of the show.
That's part of why it's called that, is because the people on the show, they're already influencers in different ways, and they chose something different themselves, and by them choosing something different, it's shifted things for other people, and including them, you know, around them, the world, things like that. And so that's how I look at influence. It's like when you all of a sudden start seeing different changes in behavior patterns in what people are willing to choose, the futures that open up for them. That's like, oh wow, that's different.
I'll tell you how I notice when I'm influencing someone, and I try to be a positive factor in people's lives. But when they start modeling my behavior and they start repeating things that I say,
Yeah.
you know, they adopt things that I say, or they laugh at the things that I laugh at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are the ways that I know that it's a good influencer. You know, and I love to laugh. I think laughter is like a great stress relief. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so yeah, my son and my daughter, they told me and my wife about different things that we've done, and that, you know, that they'll talk to their friends about or whatever. And um, I'll give an example of a time that sticks out of my mind about influencing someone. And not I don't even I don't know how to say it. It's not, I guess, not even influencing, but just instilling some values and some skill sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, my kids' school, there was a bomb threat that they had, and so my son and my daughter, the two that you met, Sebastian and Sabrina, they were out on the field or whatever, and so Sebastian and Sabrina they both looked for each other. They connected with each other. They had a couple of other friends that were there with them, and Sabrina was pretty scared, and Sebastian just took charge. And he, you know, Sabrina, some of her friends were like, "Hey, you know, let's go over here, let's go." And Sebastian's like, "No, you go away. You're not going to take her over here. You can stay with us, or you can go." And he just took charge of the situation for what they could control over what they were doing right there.
I could totally see him doing that. Like, just that, the few interactions I had already with him, I was like, yep, that totally matches.
Yeah, and that's how I am. And so it's, you know, that was one time that really stuck out of my mind, that there was an emergency situation, and, you know, he snapped into action. And I'm like that too. In an emergency situation, you know, I'm able to make decisions that I need to make when I have to make them. So
Calm,
that's,
cool, and collected.
yeah, and I think that was something that really impressed me about him. That I wasn't there, I couldn't protect him or defend him or, you know, Sabrina, but I was there with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like he wasn't thinking like, well, what would Dad think? But he was thinking the way Dad would think.
Yeah.
You know, and that was with him. So that's, you know, that's something that I think is really cool. And, you know, it's the same thing with my wife. My wife does stuff, and, you know, the kids pick up that, and so they get a blend of both, you know?
Yeah. And they get to pick
Yeah.
and choose what's going to work with their style and stuff and what they want to do.
Yeah,
Awesome.
they're their own person, yeah. And we've never tried to say, you're this or you're that. We've always tried to say, you know, who are you? You know, what do you like doing?
Sometimes it's probably like, who are you, in a way that's like what are you doing right now? Since they are teenagers after all, let's be real.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, the kids, you know, it's so funny talking about modeling behavior or whatever. The kids, they picked up on like my wife's side, so my wife is quick to point out like any of my nonsense. You know, she's like, "Hey, what?" And so my kids have started doing that to me now. And I mean, like I know you're up to something. What are you doing?
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, Adam, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Would love to have you back on. You're just a treat to talk to about everything. I definitely would love to delve deeper into any of the topics we brought up. On the adammesser.net website, that's yours, do they get a chance to look at your artwork in addition to photography and your writings? Like, what would they find there?
Excuse me. Let me get a sip of this Coke.
Hydrate. We all in Georgia.
Yeah, this is a Coke Zero, the orange vanilla. So,
That
not
is
that I'm
not
plugging food,
intentional product placement. Like
I'm not trying to do that. I was not
you're
trying to
not
plug
getting
I'm just
funding from
letting people know
Coca-Cola.
when I'm drinking. They're like, um, well, I try to post stuff on there. I don't post on my website all the time, but I'll post, different people that I'm having on as a guest, or like I might post, like I posted recently a poem. I think my last post actually was a friend of mine. She posted, I'd made a post about the student loan thing, and a friend of mine, she made a really poignant response, and I just thought I thought it was a great explanation of the situation that's been created about the student issues. So I shared that. So I try to share things like that. And then there's like an about me page that has a link. The I guess the easiest one, if you want to check out like some of the different stuff, would be my Linktree page, because it's got a link to like the radio show and stuff like that. It's LINKTR.EE/Adam Messer. So they
Okay,
spell
great.
Linktree differently. Yeah, but it's LINKTR.EE/Adam Messer, and there's a link to like my Facebook, and if you want to check out my Amazon influencer page, if you want to look at WRUU, I've got a link right there, and it's just super simple.
All right, so everyone, we will include all of those wonderful links below, so please feel free to check those out. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let us know if you have any questions for Adam. You go ahead and post it below the video. We'll make sure he gets them. And if you have any questions and messages, go ahead and email us at choosingadifferentfuture@gmail.com, or go to our website, choosingadifferentfuture.com. Thank you again so much, Adam.
Oh, thank you, Siris. I really enjoyed talking with you. And the same thing like today, I feel like it was just 5 minutes maybe. It seemed like it just went by so quick.
It's so awesome. I love it. Yeah, for me too. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.